What is going on, fellow alchemists? Welcome to Astrology. I hope you're all doing alright. Your chakras are all in alignment, and we're going to get into this one. This is Saturn in the first house. So finally, we're doing Saturn through the houses. I've been waiting to do this one because personally for me, Saturn is my planet in the sense of the planet I'm obsessed with, the planet I extract all my information from. The way I use and utilize information comes from Saturn for me. So Saturn has a very prominent placement in my chart, and it's in my 5th house, so it's all about expression. And so when you hear me talk, just know that I'm expressing myself with that Saturnian type of energy. So let's get into this one. This is Saturn in the 1st house. And I know a lot of people have a negative connotation. There's a lot of negative connotations towards Saturn. A lot of people will do that because it's attributed to Satan, the Beelzebub, the accuser. But it's also Samuel, the archangel. It's a very, very, very sacred planet. I can't even understate how sacred this is. I can't. It is a sacred planet. It is what it is. And this is Shani Dev in Vedic astrology. This is the planet of your karmas in this life. Not necessarily the karmas you take with you into your other life, but this is the planet of your karmas. This is Kronos. This is the father of Zeus. This is the father of the gods. This is where we as the soul drop through the 7 rings. Remember, the 7 rings are the 7 planets, traditional planets. And this is excluding the outer planets or the modern planets, which were just recently found. So Saturn is the 7th planet, and Saturn is where we find ourselves as a soul, as consciousness, dropping through the 7 rings into physical form. Saturn is lead. It rules over lead in esoteric astrology, and in alchemy it is the symbol of lead, or used as the symbol of lead. And so what happens is that with Saturn we see the soul dropping into physical matter, lead, dense matter, and then all the other planets that follow up are kind of just like the makeup for that matter. So Saturn gives us the solid grounding, and everything else is the makeup. All the other planets provide the makeup for this gross, tightly packed, molecular styled matter that Saturn engulfs us in as the soul. So what happens is that Saturn, a lot of the time, as I say, because it usually has these negative connotations attached to it, is because Saturn, when you go and do the research, you always hear the words limitation, restraint, bringing things, delays, a lot to deal with delays and not having what you want, because it's not about giving you what you want. And that's why people don't like to talk about Saturn, because Saturn does bring in those types of delays. Saturn makes people feel like this is a very depressive planet to deal with, a very malefic planet. And it is, in Vedic astrology, a very malefic planet, or at least that's what it's claimed to be. And I don't go by that. I don't go by those lessons. I don't go by that understanding. Of course, Saturn was the ruler of the Golden Age during the 4th root race in Theosophy, which was the Atlantean period. Now, this was a very spiritual period for humanity, our progression through the root races. Now, I will do a video on root races to explain what I mean by that. That does not mean the ethnicities, but it means the spiritual races that we come in through our evolution and our periodic time. That is a theosophical and Eastern school teaching. But Saturn ruled over the Golden Age, the Golden Period. This is the time of Atlantis. Saturn is a very mystical and sacred planet. Saturn is responsible for astrology. A lot of the time people might accustom that to Uranus and Neptune, but Saturn is also responsible for astrology. In the traditional rulers, Saturn is sitting at the gateway. Saturn is sitting at the gateway, welcoming in the adepts, those who wish to come and learn and become masters, into Capricorn, because Saturn rules over Capricorn. So Saturn is all about the occult. Saturn is about merging and mixing the occultic practice of transmutation and finally ascending up the ascending arc into spirit. So when you have Saturn in the 1st house, or in any house for that matter, I need you to understand that whilst we do deal with limitation, delay, restraint, and there can be anxiety and depression, I'll explain why I believe Saturn brings those into your life. Saturn is not bad. Saturn is actually quite good, in my opinion, because Saturn is about refinement. If you look at the planet of Saturn, and I always suggest that anybody who's following astrology needs to go and understand astronomy. I've got my telescope. I always go out every night and I look at the stars, look at the planets, and I, have that visual scope of the planets to have that visual understanding of them. And of course, there's all the research online you can do on them. And I really believe that you need to know about the astrological and the astronomical side of the planets that when we're dealing with them, because then you understand the nature, which is the nature of the planets, which is astrology, and the function of the planets, which is astronomy. So just keep that really close to your heart and to your mind when you're dealing with these things, because they really allow you to understand and get a broader explanation about what's going on. Because Saturn, when you look at Saturn, it has its rings. Saturn is about purification. No other planet in our solar system purifies the rubble, the asteroid belt that Saturn has around it. If you look at Jupiter, Jupiter has an asteroid belt, which is just asteroid belt, which is just between Mars and Jupiter, and then you have the Kuiper belt, which is right on the outskirts, and it's all just prolific and it's all over the place. Whereas Saturns are refined, beautiful to look at, purified rings, purification. Saturn is the planet, the sacred planet of purification. And the reason it can be seen as a malefic for this reason is that it gives you what you need, not what you want. You need to see Saturn as that fatherly figure, even though Saturn is it's genderless. It's a genderless planet. You could see it as a fatherly figure, as a motherly figure. It's all up to you. This is the planet where you want to look at to understand, and what you want to look at to understand that it will give you what you need, not what you want. And it will remove all the things you want and give you what you need the most. And so that's where the limitation, the restraint, the limitation and delay comes in. Because now you can't, you come into a room, for example, and Saturn, who's this big fatherly figure, this motherly figure, moves everything out of the room and only leaves what you need in that room. There's that joke that you ask your parents if you have them, or your guardians, or there was a time and they would say, you ask them for a present, and where's my presents? It's Christmas, given Saturnalia just passed by. You say, where's my presents? I need presents. Are they underneath the Christmas tree? Because I can't find them. Where did you put them? And they'll say, go into the fridge, go and turn the lights on, look above you. You've got a roof, you've got electricity, and you've got food. And that's what Saturn is about. And of course, a lot of people might not like that, because then it removes all of the excitement. But then through that, you can truly generate your own excitement. You can generate your own stuff. You can bring and accumulate things into your life for yourself. And that is what Saturn is about. Saturn accuses you. That's why it's called the accuser. That's why they call Saturn the accuser. Because Saturn accuses you for superficiality. If you're superficial about something, Saturn will say, this isn't going to work for you. This isn't going to do you any good. So I'm going to make sure that I accuse you, remove those things in your life, or make you, through a process of influencing you, remove those things in your life, damage those things in your life, so that you have to do the work. Because if you do the work with Saturn, Saturn will reward you. Remember, this is the god of the golden age. So always remember that when you do the work with Saturn, there is a reward at the end, but you have to be brave enough, you have to be sturdy enough to go into it. And if you do, Saturn will help you along. Like any parent, like any guardian, Saturn will help you along, but you have to be able to do the work. It will not coddle you. And so when you have Saturn sitting in the first house. Remember, the first house is your ascendant. This is the house of self. This is the house of appearance. This is the most vital house in the natal birth chart, because without the first house, we wouldn't be able to function. It is the user interface into physical reality. All the other things behind us, all the planets, all the influences that we have in our chart don't matter, or wouldn't be able to really function into this physical world without the ascendant, without the first house. It is the tip of the pencil. You write with the tip of the pencil. Without the tip of the pencil, the whole thing's useless. And that is what the first house is about. So anything sitting in the first house, anything that really is present in the first house, should really be seen as a prominent role in your life. The first house is who you are. The first house is who you are. All the rest of the things, no matter where your sun sign is, etc., that is things you are evolving towards, and influences in your life, in your personality, in the personality clusters that make who you are. But the first house is who you are. Not just how you look, not just how you appear to people, your first influence, the first perceptions that people get when they look at you. this is who you are. And that is why it's so important. So if you have Saturn sitting here, if you have Saturn in the first house, remember Saturn pulls from the third ray, which is the ray of active intelligence in esoteric astrology. This is the ability of Brahman. This is Brahman in esoteric astrology. This is where we see the nature of intellect being utilized to experience the physical existence, to experience our physical plane of reality. That is the third ray of active intelligence. And so that's why Saturn also finds exaltation in Libra, and it finds exaltation in Aquarius, and of course Capricorn. Because there are air signs, Capricorn aside being the cardinal earth sign, which again is about lead and is about the dealing of transmutation of lead to gold. This is why Saturn has an exaltation in Libra, and is quite good to have in Libra if you have it. So, when you have Saturn in the first house, you know, again, people will say this is a bad placement to have, but it's a great placement, really, because you're resilient. Because what does Saturn do? It takes away the things you don't need, so you don't have any excess. I have Jupiter in my first house. In fact, it's right on my ascendant, so I'm quite a sturdy, big person, right? And when you have Saturn, a lot of the time you can end up looking, because the first house deals with your appearance, you can end up looking quite scrawny, but yet quite tough. You could be quite sinewy. You know, the sinews could be quite prevalent to people. There's this kind of limited physical aspect to you that people can see, unless there's other planets aspecting Saturn, or unless there's other things in the ascendant or aspecting the ascendant that could change. But with Saturn in the first house, there's usually this kind of real grit that's in you, and that's what Saturn instills. And the reason for that is because Saturn is about getting rid of what you don't need and giving you what you do need. A lot of the time, these are the toughest people, physically speaking. Yes, you could have Mars in the first house, but that's a drive, that's that compulsion to go forward. But with Saturn, you have that fixed, absolute, dense structure to your body. It just might be limited. It might not be as prevalent as it is in other people. You might not have as much excess as you do as other people do. And so that is the kind of gift that Saturn provides here. It provides you with a lot of that limitation. Remember that limitation should be seen and used in the words of purification. Purification in your life, purification in the first house. And that's why it's a very, very prevalent position to have, and a gifted position to have Saturn in the first house. Again, there might be limitations elsewhere. You know, again, it's like walking into that room and hoping that there's something, you know, you come in with the expectation, because this is what generates the depression with Saturn. This is what generates the anxiety. It's coming into the room expecting something to be there. And it's something you want, not something you need, and it's not there. Yet, if you look around, if you do the work and you don't panic, you don't resort to anxiety and freaking out, and you take the time to fastidiously work around the room and look for the thing that Saturn left you, because Saturn will purify your gift so much that it will be very hard to find. But with that dedication, with that resilience that Saturn gives you, you are able to find that gift. You are able to find the real substance, the real authentic gift that Saturn provides. And the sad part is the part that makes you sad, or the depressive side that makes you really worry and fills you with anxiety, is because you came in with that expectation that you had more in that area of your life than what's actually there. But what's actually there is vastly more considerable in regards to its nature and what it can provide you with. But you just need to be brave enough to find it. So, fellow alchemists, that was Saturn in the first house. Shani Dev in the first house. What a planet. I absolutely adore it. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe. Drop a like down below. Go into the comment sections down below, and I'm really interested to know what it is you deal with when you have Saturn in the first house. Tell us what it's like, all the limitations you come into contact with, all the issues you have to deal with, and the consequences. And more importantly, paramount to all of that, I really wish and hope that you have a really good day, evening, wherever you are. Let me not assume your time zone.